I am super excited to be joined by Antonio Menendez. Oh, I just butchered that.
No, that
Menendez?
was good.
No,
Good
I was
points. All
good.
right.
Oh, Menendez. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, I can't complain. It's actually a really nice day. It's probably a lot cooler than it is there in Arizona. But how is the fall? Like have you enjoyed that experience?
It's been awesome so far. I mean, just being around a bunch of really good players every single day. Just getting to experience. This is my first time being over here in Arizona, so getting to
Oh
experience
yeah.
the area, experiencing the weather, just being around the environment has been cool. It's been something that I don't really know how to explain. It's almost as if it's like summer college ball, but like at a 10 times more elite level.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun experience.
Yeah, speaking of like the talent and stuff, like obviously there's incredible talent. Has there been anyone who's like stood out to you or you're just looking at them maybe on your team or a different team where you're just like, dang, like that dude's just elite.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it's funny because they have their special guys they post about all the time on
Yeah.
social media because they're
Yep.
top prospects. But there's some guys that are kind of under the radar that really, really surprise me, just with their day-to-day skills. Like Victor Mesa Jr. is really, really good. He plays for the Marlins.
Yeah.
Of course, Jason Dominguez is good. We have a lot of pitchers that are relievers that aren't even prospects for their individual organizations, but come out here and really show out.
Yeah.
We have a couple guys from the Cubs that have just been electric, and it's pretty cool to watch. So, of course, you have the big names. You play against guys. You play against Heston Kjerstad from the Orioles, and
Yeah.
every time he gets a base hit, you see it on Twitter, and we make jokes about how certain guys, Kumar Rocker, every time he goes out there, whether he gives up 10 runs in one inning or strikes out the side, they're going to post about it. So it's more to it's a little bit cooler to see the guys who are under the radar who are having success out here.
Yeah, like speaking of like guys under the radar, like
Yep.
Evan Reifer, so like he's been on the pod twice, and I still continue to butcher butcher his last name. But yeah, he's a good friend. Been on the pod twice. Really good guy. Underrated. Wasn't drafted, but that's because of COVID. He would have been drafted otherwise. But
Yep.
I mean, he's on your team and stuff like that. How's he doing?
Yeah, he is doing incredible. He hasn't given up a hit yet. He's the
Dang.
only person in the fall league who hasn't given up a hit.
Okay, shout out
Um,
Evan. I see you.
yeah, Evan's killing it right now, and he's actually my roommate here. He's a great guy. It's fun to be around. It's fun to learn from him every single day. He's been in pro ball a little bit longer than I have, so get to pick someone's brain. Whenever I have any questions.
Yeah, and he's a good guy. How is he for a roommate? Like, you have any
Oh,
funny?
he's awesome.
All right.
It's
You
funny.
have any
He
funny epic stories?
Yeah, he sets up his Nintendo Switch in the living room, and sometimes I'll come home or like come out of my room and he's out there playing Mario Kart by himself or uh, Nintendo Golf or whatever it's called, and he's always having a blast on his Switch, which is
Yeah,
pretty funny.
more of an Xbox guy. Always been an Xbox guy.
Yep.
Haven't really gotten down with the Switch too much. I have, like, the old NES games, like, I downloaded, like, because you can get, like, the old, like, Mario games and the Donkey Kong games and all that kinda stuff.
Yep.
So that's kinda fun to play with here and there, but, man, I haven't gotten too deep into the Switch and stuff like that, but no, Evan's a good guy, like, and I'm glad he's doing well out there, and like I said, guys who are under the radar, it's cool, like, I mean, I read the story about you, it's kinda interesting, and you have, it was written a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, I think,
Yeah.
3 different arm slots or something like that. Did you see that article about you?
Yep. I did. Yeah. Yeah. That was my first. I would say my first official interview I've ever had. That was the first time someone it
Yeah.
felt like knew who I was. It was
Okay.
kind of cool to have an interview for the first time.
That's sick. So, like, when did that whole 3 different arm slots come around? Or is you have 3 different arm slots and he says you can change it, like, depending on the count, the batter, like, what is
Yeah.
all that about?
Yeah, so I throw from 3 different arm slots. I have a traditional over-the-top arm slot, a sidearm arm slot, and a submarine arm slot. And I started to develop that when I was about 13 years old. I would just kind of drop down sidearm for fun.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think exactly how old I was. I think I was 14. Billy Wagner, the famous closer,
Yeah.
was my coach. I played with
That's
his
sick.
son is actually out here, and he was like, "Hey, you're good at that." Like I would do it once a game, and all the parents would be like, "Oh," they'd
Yeah.
freak out, and they would say that I'm cheating or something, and then I was like, "Well, that's pretty cool. I like that reaction," so I
Yeah.
would do it, and then he said that I was pretty good at it. He's like, "You should continue to do that. You should add to your arsenal," and just kind of that slowly developed into what I do now with all three arm slots and throwing different pitches from each of them, and I know that the batters say that it's a really uncomfortable experience, and that's kind of my goal, and that's what makes me unique is, I don't throw 100 miles an hour, but hopefully I make batters very uncomfortable.
So you would switch it up, like, even with the same batter, you may go over the top, and that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite is when I get a nice like three pitch strikeout. I start from one arm slot. I'll go to the second arm slot, and then I'll go to the submarine arm slot. One, two, three. That's when it's really satisfying. Is when I throw all three of them at somebody.
So you can do a 1, 2, 3 different arm slots and just strike someone out. Like, I'd
Yeah,
I'd be so mad if I was a batter facing you. I'd be like, "What is it? What is going on?" My parents would call you. They'd be like, "Hey, you're cheating."
yeah, yeah. I got that a lot when I was younger.
Okay. So, like, let's get into your high school career and stuff like that growing up. Like, when did you start playing? Because you were an outfielder too, right? Like, you were in the
Yep.
outfield and pitching. Like, when did you strictly decide, like, I'm gonna be strictly pitching?
Well, I actually didn't make that decision, and I actually part of me is still mad about it because I kind of wish I was still a position player. I
So
was a
you wanna be
posi-
the
I was a
next you wanna be like Shohei. You wanna be
I don't know
batting
if I
and
could do that. I don't know if I could do that, and especially now seeing how good these pitchers are, I don't know if I would have made it. But I was a two-way all the way through high school. My senior year in high school, I had a bone spur in my elbow, and I
oh,
had that removed. And because of that, I still wanted to play my senior season, so I just DH the whole time. And once that senior season of high school was over, I was already committed to Wake Forest, and I was supposed to two-way at Wake Forest. I get to Wake. For some reason, nobody tells my coach that I had elbow surgery. So I hadn't picked up a bat in, I don't know, 4 months. And I get to school and I'm cleared to go hit batting practice day one. And it was horrible. I don't think I put a ball out of the infield. I
jeez.
was fouling off pitches. I was swinging and missing. And he calls me aside after the first practice and it's like, hey, I think you're just going to pitch here. And I was like, "Yes, sir. I guess I'm just pitching." And it's funny because 2 years later, he comes up to me and makes a joke about it, like, "Oh, haha, remember when you used to try and hit?" And I brought up, I was like, "Yeah, but remember how I had elbow surgery? Like, maybe you would have a thought that maybe I just struggled for my first time hitting." And he was like, "Oh, nobody ever told me that
Jeez.
you had elbows." So yeah, I got screwed out of hitting because nobody told my coach that I had surgery. So long story short,
Yeah.
I got screwed out of my Shohei Ohtani possibilities.
Yeah, you could have been the Rays Shohei. That's crazy.
Yep.
And, like, it's crazy because, like, I know guys who come on the pod and they're like, "Yeah, I was gonna be a two-way," and as soon as they get to, college, they're like, "No." They just he just told them that so they can kind of recruit them and stuff. At least your coach
Yeah.
gave you an opportunity to, like, see what you can do. I mean, he's probably looking at you like, "This guy was a DH in high school? Like, he can't get out of the infield."
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it was frustrating. Like I remember I was super stressed out because it was my first time picking up a bat. I'm the freshman who doesn't want to say anything, doesn't want to sound, weak or
Yeah.
make complaints. So I just go out there and do it. And everyone's putting on a show. We have Bobby Seymour, who's with the Rays, of course. He's putting on a show in BP as a freshman. And I'm out there just swinging and missing in batting practice, and of course, that didn't set a good tone early.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't want. I'm not really a stats guy. I say that all the time, but like I was looking at some of your. I couldn't really find a lot of your high school stats, but I saw that as a sophomore, you're 7-0. Like, did you ever like
Yeah,
you didn't even lose as a sophomore pitching? You're just like, nah, I'm not about that life.
yeah. I enjoyed starting and winning. That's a question that I think I'll give you a good question is if
Sure.
I should start or relieve, going into the future and what the Rays want to do with me. And I love starting because for that reason alone, I love winning games. Like I love having control over the outcome of a game as much
Mhm.
as possible. When you're coming out of the pen, you can save a game, of course, you can save a key situation, or you can kind of hold whatever's happened
Yeah.
with the starter. But as a starter, you have the ability to go 6, 7, 8 innings and truly dictate the outcome of a game. And I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty fun. And that's why everybody highlights the starting pitchers. You
Yeah.
have those relief guys that aren't closers, that are the Evan Reiferts of the world, that are the me of the world, that go out there and they actually throw the most key outs of a game, but nobody really cares.
Hmm.
So that's part of why I want to start. And they actually had that conversation with me before my season even started. Was hey,
Okay.
this year um, you're going to have a limitation because of Tommy John. It's 3 innings and 55 pitches. And next year at spring training, of course, depending on how your season goes, we'll reevaluate what we want you to do, whether that's start, relieve, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I do imagine that they're going to keep me in the reliever role since I've had some success so
Yeah.
far this year. But like I said, I do enjoy starting, and if I magically get a starting role somewhere and get to pitch in the big leagues as a starter, I will have no complaints.
Yeah. And so, like, also, like, coming out of the bullpen, like, I mean, as a starter, you have your routine. You know when you're gonna pitch, you got 4 days rest, and you're gonna be on that 5th day, that's your thing. As a reliever, you never know when you're gonna go into a game, and that's kinda cool too. I've had guys tell me, like, they kinda like that because they can go in more games, and they don't have to wait, 4 or 5 days to pitch and stuff like that. But like everyone's different, and like I mean, you kind of sold me on the starting job. But those relievers are important. Like I mean, you can be that next Edwin Diaz, little trumpets coming out of the, running out there at the Ray
Yeah,
Stadium.
that's the dream. I mean, I would love to be a big league closer. I think that would be sweet. I don't. If I envision myself in the big leagues, I actually don't see myself in that role simply because I think I add more value not being limited to the ninth inning.
Sure.
I think people like Edwin Diaz, who throw 100 miles an hour and are electric like that,
Hmm.
are fit for a closer role. I mean, typically you see the closers out there like Chapman and Diaz. They just go out there and throw
Yes.
fuel by
Yeah.
people for one inning. I think because of all of the different pitches in my arsenal, I have the ability to go multiple innings and also match up well in key situations. So it seems like every time I pitch, in my career out of the pen, it's like, oh my gosh, bases loaded, one out. Something, we're calling to the bullpen, and I got
Yeah.
to figure out how to get out of the inning, and that's what I really enjoy out of the pen. I love coming in high leverage situations, whether that's closing a game or not,
Hmm.
having runners on base and trying to back my teammate up because I know as a starter, the worst feeling in the world is getting pulled with runners on base
Right.
because all you're sitting there thinking about is those are my runs out there, and now it's not in my hands anymore. It's in the guy out there's hands,
Yeah.
and I love being able to get out of those innings and kind of you can see like the sigh of relief on the starter's face when he hugs you when that
Yeah.
inning ends and you get out of it. So that's all part of relieving that I think most people don't necessarily recognize as a fan. Like
Mhm.
that stuff is really cool to experience.
Yeah, and you can even see here in the majors when like the starting pitcher is kind of just like watching, like, okay, and then like as soon as like even in the playoffs, like I've seen it like so many times, like they're one of the more excited people because like like their runs that left on base didn't score, so that's pretty cool. How do you get yourself
Yeah,
hyped up? Like, what do you do to get yourself? Are you like a smelling sauce guy, pre workout? What do you
yeah.
do?
So I don't know if you've seen the video, but I actually blew up in college I was on ESPN and Barstool Sports and
Really?
everything for my warm up routine. So
I didn't. That's on me
uh,
for not doing a good enough research. 'Cause I didn't even see that.
yeah, I kind of blew up. I have a video on my Instagram. It's got like I don't know couple like thousands of views just on my Instagram. The actual videos on SportsCenter and stuff have millions, of course.
Jeez.
And unfortunately, through this whole thing, I only gained like 10 followers. So that I was pissed about that.
Yeah, that's something you would think you'd get a couple hundred at least, like, but
No,
wow.
no, I got screwed. But I was actually telling the story to Ryford because Ryford didn't even know this story. So I'll give you the long-winded story about my routine because it's
Yeah.
actually a big part of me and my like brand now. My freshman year, I had never given up a home run in my life. In any situation, I'd never given up a homer. The first pitch of my college career, I gave up a homer,
Wait, in high school,
and
you never gave up a homer?
never travel
Wow,
ball, nothing. Never gave
that's
up a homer.
crazy.
Get to college. The problem was is I actually told my team like, "Hey, I'd never given up a homer in my life," and of course, they're
Uh,
waiting for it. And opening day as a freshman, I go out there to pitch, and the first pitch of my college career, the hitter had never hit a homer in his life. And we play at Wake Forest, which is the tiniest ballpark you can play in the country.
Mhm.
The guy hits it 272 feet down the line,
Wow.
and it goes right over the corner. And basically, I never heard the end of that for the entire freshman season. And because of that, I just lost confidence in throwing the ball over the plate. So that's why if you see my freshman stats, I had like 13 or 14 Ks per nine, but I also had like 14 walks per nine.
Oh,
And that's strictly because I was so scared of giving up a home run again. And so, anyway, going into that summer, a kid was taking pre workout before he's going into pitch. And he was like, "Yeah, it gets me fired up. It gets me focused." And I was like, "You know what? I need to change something up. I need some confidence going out there. Let me try that."
Mhm.
So I started taking pre-workout. Uh, that happened in summer ball going into my sophomore year. I get to college in my sophomore year. They call it down to the pen against Virginia Tech, and they're like, well, basically, we're standing in the dugout. We don't sit in the pen awake. The coach just turns his head and says, "Hey, get so and so hot." And I was the guy that year, my sophomore year. I almost led the country in appearances. I think I was second.
I saw that.
And it was, "Hey, Tony, you have 30 seconds to get hot. You're in the game." Like that was the type of situation every time I was called upon.
Yeah.
So I'm sprinting down to the bullpen. I have to get my pre-workout in my water bottle, and I just chug it as fast as humanly possible. And I'm just so amped up that I spike the water bottle into the ground. The water bottle flies up into the air and lands into the trash can. And
What?
everybody goes silent for a second and then just starts cheering. And I went out there and I think I threw like, whatever, three shutout or whatever it was. And from then on, that was what I had to do. So now every time I pitch, I get pre-workout in a bottle. I chug my pre-workout, I spike it into the ground, and that's what kind of gets me going before I get into the game.
That's so sick. At least and it made it into the trash can. Like, if you go out there and you
Yes.
don't perform after that, like, that's so anticlimactic. Like, good thing you went out
Yeah.
and shoved.
Yeah. And it's funny because the first time it happened was early on in the season. The Virginia Tech one is the one that went viral.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, the camera was on me warming up in the bullpen, probably because they saw me sporadically sprint down there to
Yeah.
warm up. And you see our bullpen coach. It's very subtle, but in the video, you can see him like telling someone like, "Hey, watch this," and he points like at me like, "Hey, watch this," and I spike the Gatorade bottle, and the announcers are like, "Whoa, well, whoa, what was that?" And next thing you know, I get the video, I post it on my Instagram, and somehow it's on ESPN and whatever, all these different accounts, and it just blew up.
You went viral and, like, again, you got, like, 10 followers from it, but, like, whatever, like,
Yeah.
we'll try to recreate it. Like, you that's what you gotta do in the Arizona Fall League. You gotta strike out one of these big guys, and then on your way back to the dugout, like, just spike something, I don't know, your glove, see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, I need to do something to go viral again. It's so hard now. Oh, it's actually so easy
It's
nowadays,
pretty
but
easy nowadays, but there's so many it's also saturated, so it's like you gotta do something that stands out, like,
yeah. Yeah, and there's a fine line of, like, good and bad publicity, especially with someone who
mhm,
doesn't have a big name. Jason Dominguez, steps on the yard and
yeah,
he goes viral, but
yeah.
me, I gotta do something kinda drastic.
I don't know, maybe a glove flip?
Something.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had I guess our closer in AAA does a backflip every time he gets a save, so that's
that's
pretty
sick.
cool.
Yeah, like, maybe do a cartwheel. I'm trying to think, I don't know what you can do to go viral as I mean, sure, you could do something, but, like, maybe just stare down, maybe just, I don't know, man, like, do the sword,
Yeah.
Trevor
Yeah, the
Bauer,
Bauer
like, sword.
sword.
Yeah, yeah. Man, well, we'll have
Yeah.
to I'll have to brainstorm. I'll see what I can find out. Maybe come up with a couple ideas to help you go viral. And all you gotta do is just give me some credit for it, and that's all I ask for.
I appreciate that. Yeah, whenever the video goes viral, I'll just tag you in there and you'll get
Yeah,
some
that's what's
followers.
up. Maybe I'll get 10. We'll see who gets more.
Probably you.
You never know. You never know. So, like, in high school and stuff, you were the 13th prospect from Virginia. I'm sure there's probably some hype surrounding you and in your area and stuff like that. Like, what advice do you have for like maybe high school players, or even other players who just kind of like who maybe have that hype, or maybe not even have the hype, but just maybe some advice for like younger players looking to get into baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I was ranked the 13th prospect, but I couldn't tell you that there was necessarily like hype around me. I'm sure in my district and, they knew I was a very good player. But early on, I mean, my entire baseball career, I'd always had coaches and older people and, scouts or whatever you want to call them tell me that I'm not good enough to make it. So I was one of those kids who was never good enough. And I just kept fighting and clawing and battling to try and get to the next level. So for high school players, one, play every game, like it's in your backyard, because that's when you're going to play the best. So whether you're at a perfect game tournament, I know that that's where like all the scouts are going to be there, and you want to go to college, and the big thing that I hear a lot is I want to go D1, of course, and just play like it's in your backyard, because the biggest thing is you never know. which game everyone's watching all the time, but you never know which game is going to be the game that really matters. For me, I can tell you my story as to why and how I got all of my college offers. I got over 35 college offers within 7 days.
Wow.
And all of that went from I am not going to play college baseball to oh my gosh, like I can go almost anywhere I want. And it's not like I throw 100 miles an hour. I'm a weird, funky sidearm guy who can hit a little bit. And that's how I got to college. And I was at a perfect game tournament, and everyone was there to watch another kid play. So not a single one was at that game to watch me pitch, and no one even knew I was going to pitch.
Yeah.
They were there for a really good friend of mine, Brian Morrell, who's a really top prospect out of the Northeast from New York. He had offers, from every, college you can imagine, the Vanderbilts, the everything. And he's pitching, of course, and he throws 93 miles an hour as a high school sophomore, and everybody loves him. So he's starting, and I come out of the pen after he's done pitching. So there's 100 scouts there, and lo and behold, they're not there to see me, but they might as well stick around. So I throw, and I guess threw really well, and I just played as if it was any other normal game. I didn't pitch to get uh, a college offer. I just pitched because I enjoyed pitching and I love pitching. And next thing you know, I'm walking back to the car and I get handed like three little index cards with like, their numbers on it to call. And then my coach, all of a sudden he's getting calls left and right, like, hey, you need to call this coach, you need to call this coach. And
Wow.
by the end of that week, I had like 35 college offers. And, I just started to have to say like no to people. As soon as they said this college name, I was like, no, sorry. I don't care what you offer me. I have to say no. I have too many to like even comprehend. Um, and that does not speak at all to my talent. Like I wasn't some freak talent. I just, went out there and maybe seemed a little projectable, was a tall, lanky kid that didn't even throw that hard, and next thing you know, I was in the right place at the right time. So
Wow.
high school kids just play every game as if you're in your backyard. You never know when you're going to be in the right spot.
That's insane. So 0 to 35 in the span of a week.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
what
and
were some of the colleges? Like, what were some of the good ones that you were maybe considering before you went to Wake Forest?
yeah. So my top five was Wake Forest, of course. My second place that I ended up like battling between was Texas Christian University.
Mhm.
So Wake, TCU, Miami, Florida State, UVA, Penn State. I had a full ride to like 5 other schools that I didn't
No
even
big
think
deal,
fit.
just like legit D1 schools.
Yeah, and that was the thing is the biggest I wanted to go to a school with a good education. That was
Yeah.
my priority. So, um, that was a big factor. So some schools with, not as prestigious of educations may have given me a literal full ride begging me to come that have big names, and I felt like I wasn't doing my family justice and myself justice because I could have Tommy John or shoulder surgery. You never know; your career could be over. So I made the decision to prioritize my education. Of course, actually wanting to play. Like if I was going to go to a Miami, no offense to Miami players, but they recruit 20 guys a year and cut half of them, and then some of them never play. And I didn't want to take that risk. So, weighing my options, I wanted to go to a school that I knew I was going to play. I felt like I trusted the coach um, and a great education. And that's where Wake ended up coming on top. And of course, financially. So I had to weigh the actual offers themselves. And I didn't want to put my family in financial debt if I didn't
Yeah.
have to. So I had to weigh all of those options. And Wake ended up being the one on top.
And does Virginia look at you or Virginia Tech look at you now as like, man, he's the one who got away. Like our
I hope
hometown
so.
guy.
I hope so. Virginia Tech did contact me, and that was kind of during the span of just mayhem of getting calls.
Yeah.
Um, Virginia was my dream school forever. And it's funny because I'm a little bit bitter to UVA because the experience with getting an offer from them and was kind of it was very informal. They said they liked me, but they didn't really ever do
Gotcha.
anything to show it. And their pitching coach at the time, Coach Carl Kuhn, was known to be very militaristic, and O'Connor in general with UVA. They're very military with how they do their work there, which is fine. Um, but the thing that drew me off of UVA is their pitching coach. He likes to what I would call pigeonhole pitchers into throwing in with certain mechanics. Every UVA pitcher that you've seen, they have this squat. Andrew Abbott is a big prospect right now from who went to UVA, who still does the squat and the pitch. And I throw from three arm slots. I'm the weirdest pitcher you're ever going to see. I felt like I wasn't going to fit into a culture and a pitching environment where that says, "Hey, you have to pitch like this." So that drew me off of UVA a little bit, even
Gotcha.
though it was my dream school growing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, like, they have a really good program, but how was it at Wake? Like, what was that experience pitching? Like, how was, like, just the overall environment?
So the school itself, I can't say anything negative about. I absolutely loved the education that I received. I was in the business school there, so I you have to apply after your halfway through your sophomore year. You apply to the business school.
Mm,
Thousands of the kids apply, and they only select a couple hundred people every year. And I went to Wake to go to the business school. Like, if I didn't get into the business school, I would have been very disappointed. Not necessarily with picking Wake Forest, but like I might as well have just gone to a different, another
yeah,
school with maybe better partying or better football or whatever. Um, so I got to the business school, and because of the degree that I received in business school as a finance major, that made everything worth it. I met some incredible people in the school. People that go to Wake Forest are people that you want to stay in contact with the rest of your life. So that was really cool. I liked that the campus was small. Everything was really close together. You walk everywhere. The campus is beautiful in and of itself. The facilities, including the baseball facilities, are absolute top tier, better than pro facilities, to be honest with you. And so all of that was incredible. My baseball experience was good. I think college baseball for anybody is going to have its ups and downs. So many new experiences that you encounter. There's a lot of ups and downs of successes and failures. There's a lot of maturing. You're at an age where, it's a lot of new things are thrown at you and you're
yeah,
by yourself. So I've never truly met outside of a handful of people that I've talked to that have played college baseball that can just straight up say, I absolutely loved every second of every day in college, because that's just not as an athlete,
yeah,
because you're battling so many different things with, trying to get good grades, trying to be successful in the baseball field, and just not having enough hours of the day to do both of those things and have some sort of a social life. So college athletics is no joke, in my opinion, especially for someone who was staying up till 2 in the morning studying every day.
but, like, how was the team? Like, yeah, I mean, you had a couple good guys who got drafted, like, I think you said the
Oh,
Royals
yeah.
prospect, I think he's their number 2 prospect or something like that. Like, how was the actual team? Did you guys do pretty well? And, like, what was that environment like?
Yeah, so our teammates were awesome. I played with just amazing players. So half of them were my roommates. We had a suite with, 8 players. All of them but 1, or sorry, 6 of the 8 played professional baseball,
That's
or are
great.
still playing professional
Yeah,
baseball. One of them is in AAA. It's like the top prospect for the Braves right now, Jared Schuster. Another one, Ryan Cusick, here on my team, top prospect for the A's. Bobby Seymour with the Rays. I mean, we had unbelievable talent every single year. Um, we had 3 first round picks in my 4 years there, all pitchers.
that's crazy.
So, yeah, we had some talent. And it saddens me to say that we weren't as successful as we wanted to be as a team.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it clearly wasn't talent. You ask anybody in the ACC whenever they played us, they're like, on paper, your team was the best team by far. I mean, you see the names on that team and you're like, wow, like they should win everything. And for whatever reason, we just could never get it to click,
mm,
on all cylinders. Like one year we like led the country in homers. And then the next year we couldn't hit at all, but we threw lights out. We had every guy throwing 97 miles an hour. So it was this weird up and down of never finding that true rhythm as a team.
wow. So what was maybe one school that, like, you loved to pitch against? Maybe it was Virginia. Um, for just not for not being the team that the school that you went to, or maybe another team. Maybe the fans are extra cocky. Some ACC teams are pretty good. Like, what
Oh
was one
yeah.
team you just love to shove against?
2 teams. UVA simply because of the story I told
Yep,
you, and 2 was Duke. So my girlfriend goes to or went to Duke, so that was always cool because she got to, she knew all the Duke people, and I kind of felt like, oh, like because they might know her, I have to pitch well.
that's
But
true. Yes,
secondarily, I'm not gonna lie, in college, I was a big chirper in the dugout. I
nice.
love to get under people's skin and fire people up, and along with all my shenanigans with, throwing the Gatorade and all that stuff, like, teams hated me because I was the guy that, 1, was always throwing in high leverage situations, but 2, I loved getting under people's skin. I don't do it anymore, but it's a very college thing to do when you're in the dugout and, you're just yelling obnoxious things with your team. You're not yelling directly at people, but
Yeah,
sometimes that does happen.
yeah.
And Coach Pollard at Duke, there was a specific time we were playing at Duke where he got out of the dugout and just was yelling at me specifically, like telling me, whatever. I don't know what he was saying, but he was yelling specifically at me while the game's going on, and the umpire had to get him back into the dugout because I had fired him up so much by just yelling stuff from our dugout. Yeah, I fired like, and it was funny because our equipment coordinator, I guess all the equipment coordinators talk. And
Mhm.
after that series, a week later, my equipment coordinator comes up to me and is like, "Hey, they are still talking about you at Duke about how much they hate you."
So you're a legend
Uh,
at Duke, but for
I
negative
I'd li
reasons.
I'd like to think so. We walked them off one game, and we all had beef jerky sticks, and our rally thing cry that I randomly came up with was that we were waving beef jerky sticks in the air. And when we walked them off, everyone threw the beef jerky sticks in the air,
That's so
and the coach at third base got pummeled with beef jerky sticks. And I don't know if people were doing that on purpose or if it just happened to be that way, but it was hilarious when it happened. He was not happy about it. I apologize if he ever sees this podcast. We didn't mean to do that, but that added to the lore.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
so you're kind of like the Draymond Green of like your school, just kind of chirping a little bit and
Yeah, in
yeah,
college, I would say so. I probably had that reputation. Once you get into pro ball, it's a little bit
yeah, yeah.
more professional for sure. But in college, when you have I would we always felt like Duke was our rival with baseball, but Duke never felt like we were their rival, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
because Duke and UNC always had their thing. But so that's why we were a little extra chippy whenever we went to go play Duke because they kind of just felt like they were better than us.
Did you ever throw at anybody, like, or get involved in, like, a benching? Because I feel like, with that kinda chirpiness, like, eventually something's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I would never, and still haven't hit anybody on purpose. I hit people all the time, unfortunately, but on purpose, I've never hit anybody. I always hit them with, some soft slider that nicks them on the elbow, and they get to go to first base. But no, I've never hit anybody on purpose. I kind of draw the line at stuff like that, just because I don't want to be the cause of like anybody getting hurt or anything like that. Like I do that type of stuff and did that stuff in college honestly as a way to get myself fired up and
Sure.
focused, and 2, to try and give any advantage to my team as possible because I knew that if a hitter was in the box and, I struck him out and I did a nice big K strut, people would see that. And
Yeah.
that kid hopefully would not be as confident in his next at bat. And that would give my advantage. So that's why I felt like as a leader, I guess, on my team, I had to do whatever necessary to give our team a competitive advantage. And if somehow making a poor kid feel a little less confident at the
Yeah.
plate, that's what I'm going to do. So that was my mentality.
Plus, you have the 3 different arm slots and, like, man, you must have been just like a terror to face in college and stuff.
I hope so. That's the goal.
Yeah, and then moving forward too, how was college game days and stuff like that? Like, I mean, obviously, you said it's ACC, so I mean, it's the environment's big. Like your team wasn't like maybe ranked or anything like that, but like I mean, I think they went to a couple bowl games when you were there.
Yep.
Like, how was the whole like tailgating college experience like that?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, we had a good time. The thing with Wake is that it's a small school, so there's only 5,000 people at Wake. So you go to Clemson. I went to a football game at Virginia Tech with one of my best friends growing up, and that place is insane for
Yeah,
college. Like I went to just Wake Forest games, and I thought those were fun. I went there, and I was like, this is a whole new level of football.
yeah,
We always had a good time, and especially if we're playing a big team, Clemson, whatever, the stands would be filled with their fans as much as our fans. So it was cool, and it's something that I definitely will never forget. But I think it's one of those things when you make a decision of like what school you go to. I'm sure if you go to an Alabama, like the football presence is going to be a lot more impactful on your college experience than if you are at a Wake Forest.
that's true.
And Wake Forest is successful. It's just honestly just the size of the school that unfortunately doesn't promote 50,000 people to show up to a football game.
That's fair. That's a fair point. So let's talk about draft day. Like, when did you kind of know that you were going to get drafted? When was that moment where you went to like, you were telling yourself, if I get drafted or if I do this, and started telling yourself, like, when I get drafted, and you kind of were confident in that whole thing happening?
I'll be honest, I didn't think I was getting drafted. Period. um, I missed 2020 because of COVID, just like everybody.
Yeah.
I blew up my UCL the week before my season started as a senior,
Oh, yeah, to get
and
concussion.
I thought I was done. I didn't pitch for basically 2 years, and I'm banking on a team to pick me. And as talented as I believed myself to be, and ready to play professional baseball, um, it's baseball is it's a business, and
Mhm.
it's the risk reward of paying someone in the draft for someone who hasn't pitched in 2 years. So I knew I had the talent. I just didn't know if a team would believe in me.
Sure.
And clearly the Rays did. And funny thing is, I mean, I got calls during the draft. I assumed it was going to be later because of my situation. The team that picked me up was going to have to rehab the back half of my Tommy John anyway, which is a liability. They didn't even know if the Tommy John was successful yet. So there's a lot of liabilities going into this financial decision for a team. And I was getting some calls for late rounds, which is what I expected. And my agent and I set a number, and we went with that because we felt like even though in my situation that's what I was worth, and I was just sitting there watching the draft and just hoping for the best.
Mhm.
And I didn't even get a call. My name just popped up on the draft board.
Oh,
My agent didn't get a call. I didn't get a call, and all of a sudden the Rays drafted me. And I I think my experience with getting drafted is, I wouldn't say unique to me, but unique to most situations, is I wasn't excited. I had like a sigh of relief
sure.
because I just wanted to play baseball. And that's how I feel right now with being in the fall league. Like I want to pitch every game. I just want to play baseball. When you have Tommy John and you're out with COVID and Tommy John, like you miss out on so much just playing the game that you love that I just wanted an opportunity. They could have, I mean, I'm glad I got to sign for the money that I did because that financially it helps. It sucks being a minor league
Yeah,
player
yeah.
and getting
I
paid,
yeah, I know.
but I just wanted an opportunity. You could have said, I'm going to give you a happy meal and a plane ticket, and you're flying out and you're playing baseball. I'm doing it. And the Rays clearly saw something in me that, they believed to be possibly successful, and
Mhm.
they gave me a shot. So I'm ever grateful for the Rays organization for doing that.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and the Rays, they love their pitching, they love their relievers, like, that's kinda something they, like, really have developed, like, they develop a lot of talent, like, pitching-wise, and you see that, like, every season, like, even guys you never hear of, you're like, "Oh, who's this guy?" And, like, okay, they're just a stud with the with
Yeah.
the Rays and their pitching development and stuff like that. That's
Yep.
pretty sick. So, how was your experience? We'll kinda end on this, like, how was your experience in the minors? Obviously, you did 1 year there. Like, what was all that like?
Yeah, it's been hectic. I would say in one word because I missed the first third, maybe more of the season because of my Tommy John rehab. I started out and extended, um, which is not where you want to be. You
Right.
want to be playing competitive baseball with crowds and fans and all that. So it's tough at the start. It was really tough at the start of the year mentally to like really kick myself into gear and try and prepare myself for later on because you never know when you're going to get called up. And
Mhm.
I'm pitching an extended that turns into the Florida Complex League, and finally I get a call to go to Charleston, and I felt a million pounds of weight fall off my back, just feeling like, okay, I get to play real baseball now.
Mhm.
I get to Charleston. It's an unbelievable atmosphere. I had so much fun there. And then, luckily towards the end of the season, I was throwing really, really well. They were throwing me in really high leverage situations. Numbers wise, I'm throwing well. And I get promoted to Bowling Green. And I go to Bowling Green. I meet Evan, a lot of good guys there. A lot of guys that are in my draft class are there. And again, I had a lot of fun. We won a championship there, which was a blast. Like I got to throw the last out of that.
Right.
Um, and it was just fun. And then it's like because I missed so much early on, once we won, it was like, oh, that was it. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of
Mhm.
guys are like, oh, thank God, like the season's over. And I'm like, I want to keep playing. Like this stinks. Like
Yeah.
I want to keep pitching. And then later, they told me I was going to go to the fall league, and I know the honor of being here is really cool, and just the experience and
Sure.
the talent is very good here. So I've struggled. I wouldn't say struggled, but I've had some struggles here in the fall league that, of course, I'm not going to experience at the lower levels that I was at this season. I mean, I went from the lowest you could be at in professional baseball to now one of the highest you can be at. And I've had to learn a lot about myself and how to pitch and how to be successful. So I'm embracing all of these struggles and learning curves and everything because it's, hopefully going into next year, I've learned so much about myself that I can hit the ground running and
Yeah.
try and make it push as high as possible. Of course, the goal is to be in the big leagues tomorrow, and of course, that's
Mhm.
not your decision. But I want to make, I want to do everything that I can and do my due diligence to make sure that I'm put myself in the best position to be in the big leagues as soon as possible.
Yeah, so you mentioned, like, rehabbing from Tommy John, that was, it's like a what, over a year long rehab, and
Yep.
then COVID year, like, how and you talked about being mentally strong, like, how did you, like, stay mentally strong and, like, do you have any advice for people? Because this could be, used in
Yep.
any walk of life, but, like, how did you specifically say, like, mentally strong through those trials and stuff?
I think this is a really important question for me
Mhm.
specifically to answer to people because the quick answer is I wasn't mentally strong. And I don't think anybody is. Like, if you're able to go through all of that craziness in someone's life and just be like straight as an arrow, kudos to you. But yeah, that's not going to happen, in my opinion. There's going to be ups and downs. There's days where I was crying at home, like
Mm.
I don't want to do this anymore. Like this is tough. You're going to have the days where you feel great, and there's going to be days where you're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's not about being straight as an arrow and not letting anything affect you and seeing the end goal and being perfectly happy. I don't think that's possible. I think it's about going with the ups and downs and making sure that you do everything you can to reach that goal. So you experience those lows and you have those people in your corner that can get you through those down points.
Mhm.
And when you're riding those highs, have fun and enjoy them because next thing you know, right over the horizon, there's going to be a hill. Especially with Tommy John, you're going to feel great one day and you're going to feel horrible the next. I mean, with everybody, it's like you could be at the highest point of your life and all of a sudden the season's gone. There goes baseball. Like, how do you
Yep.
mentally deal with that? You have to have people that, truly care for you and are close with you that you can be with and comfort with. And that would be my biggest advice because I don't think that anybody's going to have a straight shot arrow. Hey, I'm having Tommy John in 12 months. I'll be in the big leagues. Like that, you know, doesn't happen that way.
Wow. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that's really good advice and stuff. Just being real with everybody, because, like, I mean, like, so easy answer might have been like, you know what, it was, I made it through. It is what it is. But, like, just, kind of keeping it real. I appreciate that. Two things real quick I want to talk about. First,
Sure.
how was the championship? Like, obviously, you got the last out. Evan was there. I'm assuming, right? In that, yeah. Austin. I'm trying to think who's been in the pod. A couple of the guys that have been in the pod were in that team. Like, how was that celebration? Maybe who got after it maybe the most, or who's maybe someone who would kind of was the more wild one in the bunch.
Yeah. So the actual championship celebration, I honestly think wasn't as crazy as I guess the semifinal
Okay.
celebration
Was that
because
against
we were
Rome?
at home. Yes, because we
Yep.
were at home. We won at home, and that was a blast because they brought out tons of beer and champagne. And we're all having fun at the field, like together there. And everybody was getting after it there.
That's sick.
And then the problem was after the championship, there was a 14-hour bus ride on the
Oh,
way back that we had to take. Luckily, I live pretty close to Aberdeen, so I was able to drive myself to the game and go straight home.
mhm.
So I didn't experience the bus ride back, but from what I've heard, it was not enjoyable because everybody's had a lot to drink, and now you're on a
Sure.
14-hour bus ride
Yeah,
on the way home. And but in terms of winning itself, like we talked about my college experience, like we didn't win any championships, and winning is fun.
yeah. It
I just
sucks to
want to
lose.
win. Yeah, and I just had a blast. It was awesome that they gave me the opportunity to last out. Ryford threw really well in the
Yeah.
seventh and the eighth inning that game, and they called down and they said, "Hey, Menendez is in the game." And I was like, "All right, this is where I finally get that winning feeling." And when I hit first base, I had a PFP, or sorry, ground out to first base. I was running over to first just in case to cover. And when he touched on first base, I just chucked my glove up in the air as high as I possibly could, and I was, what I imagined.
Yeah, like, I was watching it 'cause I've had maybe 4 or 5 guys. I might be a Rays podcaster now, like, I've had a lot of guys in the Rays on, for whatever reason. Austin Vernon, he pitched well. Workman, he's coming on sometime next week, I think, and, I mean, he was pitching against Rome that first game, like, he just shoved, and, like,
Yep.
he was sick against them. Last thing I wanted to mention is, that you have, like, a Discord or, like, minor leaguers, like, outreach kinda thing, or what is that about? Like, I saw that on there. I kind of I think I joined the Discord, but so what's all that about?
Yeah, so I actually have two, I would say, business ventures. One is that it's called Athlete Access. It's a way to connect basically fans and mainly younger youth baseball players to pro guys. And we help with actual lessons, so virtual lessons. I have kids that I give virtual lessons to.
Sweet.
We give video feedback, like analyzing your mechanics, your swing, pitching mechanics. And then I code some stuff in my free time. I'm trying to learn some different coding stuff. So I coded a lot of stuff on that Discord where basically we pull videos and information from what I think are valuable sources on the internet, and we compile it where it's free for people to see. So instead of having to look up, like basically trying to figure out if this is good information or not, like we post information that we think is valuable for people to learn about their pitching mechanics, about baseball knowledge, etc. And it's just a platform where players can connect professional players can connect with youth players and hopefully bridge that gap a little bit with knowledge. And then the second thing is I actually just started a glove company
Saw that.
where I'm, trying to again give a platform, because I with Rawlings and Wilson, all these big brands, you have these big logos everywhere on the glove, of course, for marketing purposes. But
Yeah,
I like to express myself a lot. I started a glove company to allow players to express themselves truly on their gloves by putting, whatever they want on it. If they have a personal brand, if they have a cause that means something important to them, whether it's cancer or, whatever it ends up being, they can present that on the glove and really show themselves without any limitations. So I started that company as a way to just, again, give players more of a platform to express themselves and connect back to
yeah.
younger audiences.
That's awesome, and good for you for, like, finding, different business stuff and try to, like, grow your own personal brand, which I'm huge on people just growing their own personal brand and stuff like that. Yeah, hopefully, both of those take off and, like, you do well with that, and obviously, the fall league, hopefully everything continues to do well. Hopefully, you didn't jinx Evan. If he gives up a run, like, today or tomorrow, I'm gonna have to message him and be like, "Look, you might need a new roommate."
Yeah, I may have jinxed him. And it's actually, let me clarify, it's not even a run. He hasn't given up a hit yet.
Jeez.
So yeah, it's been unreal to watch.
Yeah, he's nasty. Tell him I said that.
I will. I will.
Alright, for sure. Alright, Antonio, I appreciate do they call you Tony or is it Antonio?
Both. Either
Okay.
works.
Alright. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We'll have to do this again. Love to have you back on. I might be in Florida for spring training. I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. So hopefully we'll can try to catch up then as well. But, anyway, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy, the weekend and the fall league, bro.
Awesome. Thank you. You too.